all the attorneys. I had 11 attorneys. And one of them said, hey, we should ask for X. And one of the other attorneys said, oh, come on, they're not that stupid. And he said, no, actually, they are that stupid. And sure enough, they had fucked it up. And they ended up having to drop 3 charges.
Just because of that.
Huh? They're
That
arrogant.
careless. Yeah.
They think they're smarter than everybody else is, that they don't make mistakes, or even if they do make mistakes, you're not smart enough to figure out that they've made a mistake. And that's just simply not true.
But it's also like, John, they have a VC arm, as we've outlined before.
they do.
Everyone outlines it in QTEL.
Yes.
And they admit who they invest. Oh, yeah, we threw money in Palantir in
Sure.
03.
And now look at Palantir. Billions in revenue.
And it's like, that's where sometimes I wonder, yes, I hear you. There's hubris there. There's fuck you. We can do what we want. We're seeing that play out on a massive scale right now. But sometimes I wonder if there's, if I'm crazy to wonder it too, if there's like a 5D chess thing here where people are like, we know some of this shit will come out, and that's what we want to happen because we want society to flip the fuck out.
Sure, that happens. That happens sometimes. Yeah.
And it could have happened with things that, not even related to your case, but that CIA might do as it relates to Wikipedia, where they're like, yeah, people will flip out about this by 2025, after 2026, after we do that whole pandemic thing.
Right, exactly.
Oh, exactly.
I mean, as an example.
Oh,
sure, why not? Hypothetically, sure. Okay. Sure. And another thing, too, is if you throw, so many of these ideas for operations out there, or these little mini operations, there's some that are just going to, not come to people's attention. They're not going to realize that it's some sort of a covert action operation or disinformation operation.
Disinformation. See, that's the big one now today.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know who's behind keyboards anywhere, right? We do it to a ton of people.
You don't, but even the people who are supposed to be the good guys, you can't trust. I've told you this before. I've got this buddy, Jason Leopold. He's at Bloomberg. Jason is one of the best investigative journalists I've ever encountered in my life. And honest as the day is long. He's the FOIA king. He's filed more Freedom of Information Act requests than anybody else in the history of the Freedom of Information Act, to the point where George W. Bush's Pentagon spokesman called him a FOIA terrorist. On the record, called him a FOIA terrorist. It was Jason that broke the Hillary Clinton email scandal.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
Through a FOIA request.
He got that through a FOIA. That's it.
Mm-hmm. So he told me, this is about 10 years ago, he told me that he was bored one week over Christmas break. He was bored. So he just filed a FOIA request. He had nothing else to do.
Yeah, that's right.
And he asks for all communications between the CIA and all journalists, period.
Anything.
For this period.
History.
For this period of whatever it was, a year, I think is what it was. And, the CIA never, ever, ever answers FOIAs. They say, they send you a letter saying, okay, thank you. It's in queue. Well, I filed a FOIA request 15 years ago. I'm still waiting.
What's the legality of that, though?
They have 60 days. So what happens is when day 60 comes, you have to sue them. And you will always win. And because the law is clear, they have 60 days. You will always win. And the judge will always make them pay your legal fees. Because you won.
But
he wins every single
So
time.
they do give it to him.
Yeah, they have to.
Why haven't you gotten yours? It's been 15 years.
Because I haven't sued them.
All right,
I don't care anymore. I wanted to write an article about...
Start a GoFundMe so John can sue these guys.
I wanted to write an article about a guy who I think was probably a CIA officer in the early 50s. And he became a science fiction author. And then he had a mental breakdown and committed suicide. And I think he was one of the MK Ultra victims.
Do you want to say who this is? Or?
You know what? To tell you the honest to God's truth, I don't remember his name anymore. It's been so many years. I'm sure I still have the FOIA request.
The way that started, I was worried you were going to say L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah. No.
You're like, oh, shit.
No, I don't want to poke that hornet's nest. I have enough problems in my life. Thank you. And take on the Church of Scientology. No way. So anyway, he files this FOIA request at Christmas. This is like Christmas of 2015, maybe. And they don't respond. So he sues them. He used the same attorney every time, Jeffrey Light, who's now retired. Jeffrey never, ever, ever lost a FOIA case. And so finally they just give him this dump. And he found several things that were fascinating. One, Ken Delanian, formerly of the Los Angeles Times, now the chief intelligence correspondent, chief national security correspondent for NBC News and MS Now. Okay. He was writing articles and then sending them to the CIA for clearance before he sent them to his own editors. Is it okay, guys, if I write this about you? Because if it's not okay, just tell me and I'll kill it.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Number one, scandalous. He
That's-
should have resigned.
Yeah.
Number two, there was this young, unknown, hungry, independent journalist who actually stumbled on a story. And he's like, hey, I found this information and I'm writing this article. It's going to go out tomorrow. Would you care to comment? And they wrote back to him and they said, so help us God, if you publish this, you will never be invited to the Christmas party ever again. And we will never give you an off-the-record briefing. You're going to be banned.
Oh.
And he killed his own article. You know, people say all the time, oh, Operation, Grasshopper or whatever it was called. Not Paperclip. What was the one where they were recruiting journalists? Operation.
Oh my God.
Whatever.
Not Midnight Climax.
No, that was part of MK Ultra.
Yeah.
MK
Shit. Can we
Chickwit,
look that up, Keith? Mark Gagnon and I talked about that in September 2024 on his show. I remember that, but I can't remember the name.
Mockingbird, thank you.
that's
Operation Mockingbird. People are like, well, Operation Mockingbird. They don't need Operation Mockingbird anymore. They just threaten you and tell you you're not invited to the Christmas party. They don't need to recruit people anymore.
It's access journalism.
That's exactly what it
the
is.
problem.
And it's a result of the demise of investigative journalism. Very, very few outlets anywhere in America have budgets for investigative journalism anymore.
I can't say that I've had people like from intelligence or something call up and try to get you to do stuff. But I've had some weird calls from normal people with normal jobs, let's say in like middleman type things, where they're trying to anchor you to ideas and stories and certain people and stuff like that. I've dealt with it a lot. And it, to me, immediately blinks off as like audience capture.
Right.
And almost all the time, these are things that if I did it, not every time, but a lot of the times, if I did it, we'd make a lot of money.
Yeah, I believe it.
A lot of money.
I believe it.
I won't say what it was, but there were back-to-back days a couple months ago where I was offered whale and whale.
Jeez.
These are episodes that they would pay my bills for 7-8 months. And I could not have said no fast enough.
Good for you.
Because I know algorithmically what it would also do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they do. They want to get people, whoever the fuck they are, because it's someone
Right.
who's below
And you'll
10
never
levels,
figure it out,
right?
who they are.
They want to influence people to get just certain things in the algorithm at all times so that their income becomes tethered to that. And that's a really dangerous thing. I've said to people before, I knew the system probably enough by March or April 2022 that I won't get into details. But if I wanted to have 8 or 9 million subscribers today, I could have done it. I have 1.13.
Which is also incredible.
Thank you. I would love to be able to have more money to put into this, though, and really be able to build it out. And I can't do that, but I've kept my principles intact in doing that, because to get to that 8 or 9, you are selling your soul. There is absolutely no middle ground. There is no gray area. I know exactly what it was. And it's like, do it or don't. But
Right.
That's an easy call for me.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. If you don't have your self-respect and independence, then what do you have?
Yeah. Now, there's another side to what you're saying, though, about the journalists, though, that gets really weird. And a mutual friend of ours, Joby Warwick, has talked about this openly.
Joby's like the guiding light on this issue.
Yeah.
And he's very diplomatic.
One of the most diplomatic people I've ever met in my life. So Joby's been the national security reporter forever at the Washington Post. He's got 2 Pulitzers.
Yep.
And
he's an incredible author. Like his
Unreal.
books just rocket straight to number 1 on the New York Times bestsellers list. And they're incredibly researched.
They're so well done. But love the guy. And the very first time I ever talked with him on episode 134, he was going through it and then talked about it with me off camera. He said, there's a really tough thing. He's like, I've got sources in intelligence that I'm really good friends with and stuff. And that's like, then are they telling you the truth, or are they using the friendship? But then also he goes, you'll write a story. And as a journalist, you have to go to the people involved with the story and offer a chance to comment before it gets published. And he'll get a call from CIA with his editor in the room right there, or NSA or whoever, and say, if you publish this, X number of people will die.
Yeah, they always say that.
Right. And he said, we legit have to go into a conference room and basically play like blind, monkeys throwing darts at the board to see if this is one of those where they're lying or
That's
not.
Absolutely true. Yes. And if it's really, really sensitive, you'll get a call from the National Security Advisor above the CIA director.
Shouldn't that set off a lot of alarm bells, though?
Definitely.
What is the line there? Like, let's say there is one, and for real, 150 people, whoever they are going to die from it. Yeah. But
there's no easy answer. I will say, though, that they throw that whole blood on your hands argument at people all the time. Tom Drake tells this fantastic story. Tom Drake, the NSA whistleblower. Tom is the one who first told us that NSA was spying on Americans after 9/11. They were just waiting for 9/11 to happen so that they could spy on Americans, which is what they did, and they continued to do 25 years later. So Tom was charged with 9 felonies, including 7 counts of espionage and 2 counts of theft of government property, which was the information. He walked out of the building with the information in his head, and they charged him with theft.
Thought crime.
Yeah. So to make a long story short, the entire case fell apart and all of the charges were thrown out. But he went to a proffer meeting at the Justice Department where they say, here's the information we have against you, and here's the sentence we're going to ask for when we convict you. Unless you want to confess, tell us some answers to questions we may have, and then we can talk about a slightly lighter sentence. So he was looking at, it was like 55 years. I think it was 55 years. It was a long time. And they said, you have the blood of dozens of American soldiers on your hands. And to his credit, he says, name one single soldier who died because I said NSA was spying on Americans. Name one, and I'll take a guilty plea. Name him. And then they backed off. And then later on, after the case was thrown out, they left the accusations against him on the NSA and the DOJ websites, but they took out the slide where they accused him of having the blood of American soldiers on his hands. They just make that shit up and throw it at you to scare you. They do it all the time.
They even did it with Maduro,
yeah,
who's
sure.
a bad guy.
Yeah, sure.
Remember the Cartel de los Soles? That got removed from the indictment the minute he touched down over here
Never
on 30th,
existed.
On 30th Street.
Mm-hmm. Never existed.
I forget the term for it off the top of my head. Maybe if I describe it right, you can look it up, Deef. But like it's like obfuscation by overstimulation, like providing way too much information that people are like, I ain't reading all that. That you can just kind of like poke in little things,
like
and just
millions
get away
of Epstein documents.
That's exactly. I love the transition that you were catching on to there, John, because as you said correctly, and we should go back to that now because that's why people are here. But as you said very correctly, there's another 2.5 to 3 million documents. I've heard varying numbers on that. Correct me in the comments, people, that they have now said we're never going to release. And people like Tim Burchett have come out and said, who's seen some of these documents, has come out and said things like this includes cannibalism.
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And you have to wonder when you think about, let's say, a report that Marjorie Taylor Greene has relayed about her conversation with Donald Trump on this, to where he said, this is going to hurt a lot of my friends if it comes out. You have to wonder what types of friends are being protected, obviously. And then furthermore, why the fuck are you friends with these people if these are the things they do? Because to me, it's like, I don't want the president to be a pedophile or associated with that and stuff. Fuck, I want to believe he's not. But they fired Joe Paterno in 2 days for covering up one guy in 2002. The guy had the fucking stadium named after him at Penn State. This is the president of the United States who, along, again, and I will say this, along with every administration before him, name them, Clinton, Obama, Bush, Biden, Trump 1, all of them. They've all covered this up. And it's the most massive pedophilia and many other things scandal, we'll talk about the national security in a minute, that we've ever seen. What does that say about him?
A lot, unfortunately. And I'll add something to that. There's an internal Bureau of Prisons rule at DOJ that anybody convicted of a child sex crime is forbidden from serving his or her sentence in a minimum security work camp. Can't do it. They also don't serve their sentences in maximum security penitentiaries or medium security prisons because they'll be killed there, right? Everybody beats on pedophiles in prison. So all of the pedophiles go to low security prisons. So there's still, the double concertina wire and the controlled movements and all that stuff. But in a minimum, you're free to just come and go as you please. There are no locked doors. There are no bars in the windows. Most everybody works in town, as a janitor or a gardener.
Pedophiles
Seriously.
are working in town?
They're not supposed to be, because there aren't supposed to be any pedophiles in the minimum security work camps. But that's where Ghislaine Maxwell was sent. Minimum security work. She's the only pedophile in the entire federal prison system who's in a minimum security work camp. And she was transferred there by the president. Why? Why would he do something like that?
I sent you an article before this, Steve. There were a few in the text. I don't know if you can pull it up. There was the guy talking about the 3 reports related to Maxwell and Trump. If you just go through our text chain, it's somewhere in there. But Deef will get it in a sec, because I sent Deef like 15 things right before we went on. But you have to wonder. I mean, this is a lady who's pictured at the Clintons' daughter's funeral leaning over the edge. This is a lady who's pictured with every master of the universe. This is a lady who's directly tied to the royal family, whose father is at the center of this whole thing, who knew Donald Trump for 30, like, they know, she knew everybody. So what does she have on him? Like, maybe here's a good way to start it. Do you see any scenario where Jeffrey Epstein, as a spy, which he definitely was a spy, was not prioritizing blackmail as a means to get whatever it is he needed to get?
He had to have been.
Right.
I mean, what's the point of running the operation if it's not to collect compromat on everybody just in case? One of the things that I learned very early on at the CIA was we really, really didn't like to squeeze people, right? With, surreptitiously taken photographs of them with prostitutes, or, you want to recruit somebody based on a friendly relationship. You want them to do it because they like you and they trust you. They're probably doing it for the money.
Right.
But you don't want to threaten people. The Russians do that. The Israelis also do that. And so from the very beginning, I thought that this was a part of the whole Epstein saga. It was about blackmail. It had to have been. I don't understand it otherwise. I don't understand what the draw. First of all, he's a creepy looking guy.
Yeah.
He's naked half the time, apparently. Mm-hmm. Virginia Giuffre said he had a deformed penis that looked like an egg. Mm-hmm. So what's this guy have going for him besides money? But they all have money. So what's the difference?
See, now I want to say something serious, but it's making me laugh. So I had an Epstein victim sitting in that chair the other day. And this part's not funny, but the thing that really struck me in what she was saying, and that episode will come out after this one, by the way, people. It'll be 2 episodes. Was how brilliant of a manipulator he was.
Oh, that's interesting.
And that's what he had going for him. And I'm going to give you an example on this that she would say. He would call her up because she was a model and actress and set her up with meetings in Hollywood, New York, wherever that he's not going to be at, with someone powerful that he knew. And the idea is that she's going to get raped at these meetings.
Oh, my God.
And she would go to them, and most of the time nothing would happen. But he would call her after every single one. Now, when she brought this up an hour earlier, I had asked her the question. I'd said, do you think that, like, we don't know much about Jeffrey Epstein's childhood. We know he had parents. We know he had a brother, grew up in Coney Island, but we don't know what was going on when Jeffrey Epstein was 9 years old. So it's possible he's a monster that was abused as a child. Certainly possible.
Sure.
But, like, let's assume he wasn't. Where do you think a person like that learns the psychological tactics to be able to become this monster to get people? And she was like, that's a great question. And it's like a rhetorical question. I don't expect anyone to have an answer. But then an hour later, she's talking about these phone calls. And he would call her after all of these meetings. And he'd want to know every detail. Like drastically, like, all right, what do you say? What do you do? And he'd be like, did you hook up with her? Which means that she would have been raped. And she'd be like, no. And he'd be like, why not? When you went in there, what do you do? What do you say? And I said, oh, my God. He's like Bill Belichick and Tom Brady watching football tape, except he's getting tape of fucking predators and what works and what doesn't.
Yes.
And so that guy having those types of skills, and like the first time he came in and met her, he wanted to know all about her dreams, her family, the dynamics, what she was interested in life, places she wanted to go, all these psychological things that hook you to someone and make you trust them. He obviously had those skills, and these skills would be paramount, correct me if I'm wrong, in being able to be someone who wanted to surreptitiously get information for espionage purposes. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, yes. 100%. Mm-hmm.
So, with the blackmail, I was talking with someone else on the phone the other day who I'll probably have on the podcast to talk about this and make the arguments, but he was, steel manning the argument that the blackmail was defensive blackmail, paranoia blackmail. And at the end of his argument, I said to him, I was like, every leap you had to make the argument that it was just defensive in nature, I don't have to make a single one of those leaps to say it was offensive in nature.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And it's one thing to have a little kernel of a story that you tuck back in your mind just in case you need it to protect yourself at some point. It's an entirely different thing to 24 hours a day collect intelligence on everybody. I just don't buy the argument that it was defensive in nature. No.
Meaning he was doing that for himself, but the question is, and now we should get to the origin story. Was he doing that at the behest as a literal employee or as a...
Well, see, that's really the $64,000 question. And my thinking has evolved. Do you know what that's a reference to?
I actually don't.
Oh, it was a game show in the 1950s called the $64,000 question. It was like Jeopardy. You get to the end, and if you win the big prize, it's $64,000. But it went off the air because it turned out it was fixed. And so the producers and the hosts were prosecuted. So it was no longer on TV after a few years. Anyway, when somebody cuts right to the chase, that's the $64,000 question.
Gotcha.
My thinking has changed on this, has evolved on this. I've always maintained that Epstein, to me, was obviously a Mossad access agent. And I said that right here on the show. Now, with the release of this latest tranche of documents, I think he was more than that, and that he was probably not exclusive to the Israelis. I think he was what's called an intelligence peddler or an intelligence broker, but a more sophisticated one. What an intelligence peddler is normally is, let's say you are a Pakistani guy and you work in a restaurant, and two Al Qaeda guys come into the restaurant. They have lunch, and you hear something. You go to the American embassy and you say, "Listen, I've got this bit of information. I want to talk to a CIA officer." So John comes downstairs, and I say, "Well, what do you have?" And you give me the information. Okay, sounds plausible. I'm going to give you a few $100s for your trouble. But then you go to the British embassy and do the same thing, and then the French embassy, and then the Russian embassy, and then the Chinese embassy. And you've just made 6 months worth of salary, right? That's an intelligence peddler. Epstein would have been far, far more sophisticated than that. And his intelligence is not coming from two Al Qaeda guys having lunch. It's coming from Bill Clinton and Bill Gates and Alan Dershowitz and Prince Andrew and all of these other movers and shakers that he was constantly in touch with. Now, who would it have been for? Well, we now know from these documents that through his attorney, he was actively seeking an admission by the CIA that he was somehow associated with the CIA. And they did the same thing with the National Security Council. It doesn't look like they ever got a response.
They FOIA'd them when he went to jail.
Right.
Summer 2019. And this was what was interesting. He FOIA'd them for the dates between sometime in 2000 and 2014. Now, here's why this was interesting to me, John, because there's a bigger point. I don't want to get lost, but a little tangent. I'm very open-minded on this now because I agree with you. I think we're seeing a lot more, and I think like I saw Dave Smith tweet out something that would have seemed crazy a few weeks ago, and now I'm like, that's not crazy. Where he said, I used to think Epstein worked for Mossad. Now I wonder if Mossad worked for Epstein. I don't think I'm there. However, it does feel like there wasn't I used the word employee in my question. It does not feel like there was an employee relationship. That's fair?
I agree. And that's one of the things that I've changed in my own mind. Not an employee of Mossad. We know from these latest documents that he had some sort of association with MI5 and MI6, essentially the FBI and the CIA of the UK.
That's right.
We know that he made an approach to the German intelligence service. And we know that he tried hard to get a one-on-one meeting with Vladimir Putin. They went back and forth and back and forth. And finally, the Russians agreed that he could meet with Putin and 3 other people. And he said, no, it has to be just Putin. And the Russians said no. What the fuck is that all about? Why would he, what would he have to say to Vladimir Putin that is so sensitive that the head of the, SVR couldn't be in the room? He had to say it directly to Putin.
All right, let me throw a fishing line out here. That's all this is, people. It's a fishing line. You don't have to bite on this. So I had David Satter in for episodes 92 and 133 back in 2022.
I don't know how you remember the episode numbers. I don't remember who I interviewed a week ago. And I see the icon pop up on my thing, and I'm like, I have no idea who that is.
I have a photographic audio-visual memory. It helps. But David Satter was actually roommates with Bill Clinton, or on the same hall as Bill Clinton at Oxford, and knew him, and then later had some issues with Clinton, which was interesting. Really a nice guy. I like David. David became the chief Moscow correspondent for the Financial Times in 1976.
Wow.
He was then kicked out of the Soviet Union in somewhere the area 87, 88. He was one of the last people unkicked out after it flipped over to being Russia again, but came back. And as Russia was rebuilding itself, if you want to call it that, became the preeminent psychologist of Putin in the Western world. He eventually became the first Western journalist to be banned from Russia in December 2013, conveniently right before Maidan, when he was at the Ukrainian embassy looking to go back into Russia. Basically, he got the FSB line where they're like, I forget what the exact line was. It was like 15 minutes into episode 92. It was very dramatic, but like it was something like, whoa, okay, you're going to get whacked if you go in there. Jeez. And so David obviously has a lot of strong opinions because Putin literally killed some of his friends. Boris Nemtsov was someone he was tight with. Anna Politskaya was someone he was tight with, right? So obviously he doesn't like him at all, and I fully understand that. But after David was there the first time, I was reading one of his books, and I forget which one it was, but there was a little mention in there that just made the hairs on my arm go up. 6 months before that, maybe, I had been reading this series by Henry Abbott about the relationship between Jeffrey Epstein and Apollo Global. That ring a bell?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
it
Drexel
does.
Burnham Lambert
Yeah,
becomes the
right.
guys who found Leon Black, all that.
Mhm.
Basically, Henry Abbott is a basketball reporter. He had a blog on ESPN called True Hoop. I used to read this when I was a kid, and then ESPN laid off everybody in the 2010s because they lost money, so he just kept his blog and did it from the outside. So he sees that some guys from Apollo Global get on the ownership of like 3 different NBA teams. And in 2020, he's like, that's interesting. They're kind of connected to Epstein. Let me do an investigation into
Oh
that.
my God.
He's planning on doing a 2 or 3 part investigation. Fucking guy goes nuts. It becomes a 21 chapter investigation. Some of the greatest shit I have ever read in my life. And one of the things that he really outlined, and it was sourced out the fucking wazoo, was the whole Adnan Khashoggi thing. And the Adnan, I've been waiting to bring this up the whole time, the Adnan relationship with Jeffrey Epstein from an arms dealing perspective, from a sex trafficking perspective, from an international like government communication perspective. So fast forward again, back 6 months later, I'm reading David's book, and he mentions this one war that was like, it was like one day that happened in the middle of like the second Chechen war, when Putin's basically seizing power at the time as a wartime leader, and then eventually is able to move up the elections and get into office. But I forget even what it was, but some army invaded that was related to Russia. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but it was something like this. Basically like invaded Dagestan with a bunch of helicopters, dropped, a few bombs or something, and then left, and they were going to come back. But a meeting was organized between the Russian government and the Dagestanis in either Monte Carlo or Nice.
Seriously.
At the home of Adnan Khashoggi, and he just had it in there.
That is a stereotypical Adnan Khashoggi thing to do.
And why would that be for people out there who are not familiar with Adnan Khashoggi?
Adnan Khashoggi, his actual name in Arabic is Khashoggi. Saudi arms dealer, Saudi man about the world, fixer, friend of kings and presidents and prime ministers, the uncle of Jamal Khashoggi, who was the Washington Post columnist whacked by the Saudi crown prince.
I believe he's a cousin to Dodi Fayed too.
No
Did I just say that out loud? Can we Google that?
Is that true?
Did I make that up? I might have made that up. Khashoggi related to Dodi Fayed?
So, when...
He's the maternal uncle.
No way.
Yeah.
The Fayeds are Egyptians.
Yeah, uncle and nephew. Let's pull it up for you. Right here.
Saudi arms dealer Adnan Khashoggi was the maternal uncle of Dodi Fayed, making them uncle and nephew rather than cousins. Dodi Fayed's mother was Samira Khashoggi,
Oh,
who was
my
the sister
God.
of Adnan
Like
Khashoggi.
actual uncle and nephew.
And Dodi Fayed was the man that Princess Diana was dating, who was killed alongside her in Paris,
I
France.
never knew that.
Continue, John.
So
It's all tied together.
it is.
It's all tied.
The world's not a big place.
No.
So when Congress passed a law in 1983 that we could no longer arm the Contra rebels, Colonel Oliver North, who was the Pentagon designee to the National Security Council, decided to just go around the law. And he did that by contacting Adnan Khashoggi and organizing a very complicated operation whereby we would sell arms to the Iranians, which was against the law. We would do that through Khashoggi. He used his own bank account in Cyprus to take payment for the weapons, and then he would give the money. He would take 10% for himself. He was Mr. 10%. He would take the money and then transfer it to accounts controlled by Oliver North and John Poindexter and Admiral Richard Secord, all from the National Security Council, and then use that money to buy arms on the gray market to send to the Contra rebels. It was all illegal. Everybody was indicted. Nobody really was punished, even though they were indicted. And Adnan Khashoggi just took his money and smiled and got back on the yacht and steamed around the Mediterranean.
He's a fixer among many other things.
Yeah.
But he worked for himself.
Mm-hmm.
Who did he most assist in his efforts? I genuinely don't know the answer to that question.
Probably us.
Okay.
I mean, he was very, very close to the Saudi royal family, of course. He was a Saudi, is a Saudi. I think he's still alive, although he's got to be really old by now. He was very close to the Saudi leadership. He's deceased now? Oh, yeah, 2017. Yeah, he was pretty old. Yeah, well, he wasn't that old, 83, 82. So he was one of these guys like Mark Rich who would just deal with anybody who had money, anybody who could pay. So he would work with the Israelis, he would work with the Americans, he would work with, anybody, the Libyans, the North Koreans. It didn't make any difference.
Now, there's two guys, though, because what you're talking about also with Iran-Contra ties into that Al Yamama deal that happened, which was around the same area. I'll come back to that. But there's two guys that Epstein comes into contact with upon leaving Bear Stearns, who basically seemed to cut his teeth in arms dealing and I'll say sex trafficking. He probably already had pretty good expertise in money laundering, which he seemed to learn well when he was on Wall Street. But it's Khashoggi and English pronunciation there, and Douglas Leese.
I don't know him.
In Britain. So Douglas Leese, I should have had this. There's a guy who did an amazing 20-minute documentary on YouTube outlining this whole thing. I want to find it so that we can give him credit, but I had heard about this before. Douglas Leese was a guy that Epstein claimed to have a falling out with later, who was basically like a British fixer and arms dealer who took in Jeffrey. I forget how he got introduced to him, but it was at the same time as Khashoggi, and they started. Then the Iran-Contra thing came in, and the Al Yamama deal came in Saudi Arabia. And what happened later is that Epstein's fake passport, which is like Maurice or something, whatever, was recovered, which you can deduce from the time it would have had to be provided to be that good by some sort of intelligence service.
Yep.
Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
In the early 80s. And they were able to, afterwards, chart with the information we've gotten through files, chart all of Epstein's movements through countries directly related to getting to Saudi Arabia on all the right dates to help in some way for this deal to go through. Is he not working for anyone? Because there's something I'm going to bring up after this, but at that point, is he just a guy who's getting introduced to these other independent contractors and therefore just working for them and it serves whatever purpose it serves? Or do you think at that point perhaps he was already working with Mossad or CIA or both?
Oh, I think the latter. Especially Mossad, they're very good at spotting talent. They really are. A lot of thought goes into this kind of thing. And, the way his career moved as quickly as it did, the way he accumulated wealth at a fantastic speed.
Right.
Tells me that he connected with an official body early on. When I was at the CIA, I never, ever heard of Jeffrey Epstein. Never.
Not once.
Not once. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. But never once did his name ever come up. And, for a while, I was up on the 7th floor spending all day, every day with the director, the deputy director for operations, the chief of staff, the executive director, the deputy executive director. These are serious people. They're running the CIA. And it never, ever came up even offhandedly. Khashoggi, we talked about a lot.
So you did talk about Khashoggi a lot. Mm-hmm. What was the context of that usually?
He could do anything. He could do anything. And he was willing to do anything so long as there was a nice fat paycheck for him at the end.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'd asked another guy I know who was at FBI if he had come across. He was like, "Oh yeah, there's a flow chart on that, big time."
Ali Yamama was so huge. I mean, everybody knew about Ali Yamama, and Ali Yamama was also very public.
What was the nature of that deal? Again, it was like 100.
It was
maybe I don't want to get the number wrong.
it was
Google
a lot.
That deep?
Can we just so I can refresh my own memory too? $600,000 barrels.
So 600,000 barrels of crude oil per day to the British government. Name of a series of record arms sales by the United Kingdom to Saudi Arabia, paid for by the delivery of up to 600,000 barrels of crude oil per day to the British government. The prime contractor has been BAE Systems and its predecessor, British Aerospace. The first sales occurred in September 1985, and the most recent contract for 72 Eurofighter Typhoon multi-role fighters was signed in August 2006.
Mm-hmm.
So this goes on for
decades.
Yeah. And part of what Prince Andrew is now being accused of when he was trade envoy for 10 years is covering up or refusing to share information as it pertains to Jeffrey Epstein's involvement in the Al Yamama deal.
That's right. So see, this is yet another question that we're probably not going to get an answer to. What could Jeffrey Epstein possibly have been able to contribute in the Al Yamama deal?
I've been thinking about almost nothing else for
He's
the last 27
not even
hours.
the right nationalities.
Right.
You know?
He did kind of have that thing though, where especially back then when he had the fro going and all that, where you could kind of blend. I'll give him that.
Right.
But he had those manipulation skills with people and also, John, I don't know, maybe you could speak to this better because you can look at this from an espionage perspective because you're trained to think like that. But in the regular world, right, which espionage occurs in the regular world, guys like him, when you hear him talk, the Coney Island accent, the all shucks kind of whatever, just on the surface, when
it's
you
disarming,
don't know, right?
Absolutely. That's all part of the thing, part of the delivery, part of the training. Sure.
There's something about that. It reminded me in a different way of my friend Luis Navia, who was here in episodes 221 and 222. He was like the chief smuggler for the cartels, except the Asian ones, his quote, not mine, around the world until 2000 when he was taken down in Operation Journey in Venezuela by like fucking 15 countries. But he walks up, you think he's a mix between Francis Ford Coppola and Mr. Magoo. He never carried a gun. He wasn't the violent guy. And he'd just be like, "Oh, what the fuck?" And people were like, "I can't, no, like, Luis, he would tell these stories. And they're like, "No, Luis, we're going to kill you." And he's like, "Listen, bro, I got places to be. Like, can we go to the bar or something?" And they'd be like, this fucking guy. And they just wouldn't.
Some are unflappable.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a little something like that in Jeffrey Epstein where people, even from a totally different background, worldview, or political desires, they'd get in a room with him and they're like, the fucking balls on this guy. Mm-hmm. Could you see that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Although, yeah, I could see that through the first arrest even. But then he had to have concluded that things were so bad in 2019 that this was it. It was over.
Why? Why do you say that?
Because he killed himself.
You do believe he did?
I do. I believe he killed himself.
What makes you believe that, considering all the evidence that they have?
See, but the evidence isn't as clear as I think most people would want it to be. For example, and I base this on my own experience in the federal prison system.
Mm-hmm.
The guards, number one, have their heads up their asses 24 hours a day. The only qualification to be a prison guard in the federal system, the Federal Bureau of Prisons, is you have to be working on a GED and no felony convictions. That's it. There's this rule that prisoners can't touch the mail, right? So we have mail call every day at 4:00, and the guards are supposed to say your name and hand you your mail. Most of the time, the guards didn't do mail call. Prisoners did mail call in violation of the rules. Any idea why? Because they couldn't read. It was as simple as that. The guards couldn't
Total
read.
incompetence, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally could not read to call out the names. So number one, they're idiots. Number two, the cameras are always broken. Always. I was a janitor in the chapel when I was in prison. And every day, part of my job was to go in there and break up guys having sex in the chapel.
In the chapel.
Yeah,
In the presence
because
of the Lord.
that's what I said. You guys, this is God's house, for heaven's sake. What are you going to do? But the reason they would all be having sex in the chapel is because they knew that the cameras didn't work. None of the cameras work. The guards are supposed to be doing their rounds every 15 minutes, or if there's a suicide watch situation going on, every 8 minutes. And with Epstein, it was like 2 hours before they finally made their rounds. Why? Because number one, they're either jacking off in the guard booth, which happens all the friggin' time, or they're sound asleep in the guard booth, or they're on the phone with their girlfriends, or they're surfing the internet. So no, they don't make the rounds. And then people are like, oh, but there's a glitch. You know, there's this 1 second glitch. Yeah, because every night the cameras reset themselves. They're old cameras. They still use tape, and they tape over yesterday's.
Then why don't they
cameras.
let the guards talk? Why were the guards like...
Oh, they would
siphon
never
up-
let because the guards are. Yeah, I just stopped myself from saying a word that's not supposed to be used.
retarded?
These guys are so stupid. You know, a guard from the prison where I was emailed me. He saw one of the podcasts, and he said, "This is exactly why we wanted to kill you." And I said, "Bring it, tough guy."
Why he wanted to kill you?
Yeah, because I say they're morons and retards and this and that, and it's all true. It's true. Learn to read, and then maybe we can have a conversation. I mean, otherwise, put up. Let's go. I'm not afraid of these guys. But this is why everything went wrong. Because what we saw go wrong the night Jeffrey Epstein died goes wrong every night. It's the same thing.
But so perfectly like that, you think it could line up that way?
Yes, I saw it. I saw it. For example, not supposed to have microwaves in the housing unit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then people are like, you know, you bitch long enough, they're gonna put in a microwave. So they put in a microwave. All right. There was a serial killer in my unit, and he took a liking to me inexplicably. So we called him Truck because he was a long distance truck driver, and he would murder prostitutes all along his route, and he got caught. So he would be like, "Hey, John," he had these like rotten black little nubs for teeth. "Hey, John, I saved you a seat in the TV room. Watch the Steelers game." I'm like, "Thanks, Truck." Or, "Hey, there's a new classic rock station. I know you like classic rock. It's 1600 AM. Thank you, Truck." Truck hated pedophiles. Hated them. Fully a third of the prison is pedophiles. Because remember, they're all at the low security level.
Right.
So there's like this rule in prison. No pedophiles are allowed in the TV room. And pedophiles aren't even allowed in their own room unless it's to sleep. Okay? So if you're a pedophile and it's the middle of the day, get the fuck out of the room.
Hmm.
Well, there's a pedophile in his room. And the guy's like, blah, 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 blah. He won't stop talking. Well, another thing is pedophiles aren't allowed to have any visitors in their rooms. You can't have another pedophile because they're going to talk about pedophilia, which is what they do. They relive their crimes every single day. They can't help themselves. So this pedophile is just yapping away, and Truck is getting angrier and angrier and angrier. And finally, the pedophile lays down for a nap. Truck had gone to the commissary and he bought a bottle of olive oil, which is $2.85. You can, because everybody cooks in their cells.
Plastic or glass?
Plastic. So he pours the olive oil into a bowl and he microwaves it so it's boiling Like literally it's bubbling, boiling, scalding oil. And he pours it on the pedophile's face while he's sleeping. And the scream, I'll never forget the scream. And his skin is just like dropping off of his skull. And the pedophile got, medevaced to Pittsburgh. They landed a helicopter in the yard and medevaced him to Pittsburgh. Truck got another 10 years onto the 40 he was already doing for being a serial killer.
He was only doing 40 as a serial killer?
I know, right?
He had a great lawyer.
Yeah, I did. But the point is that there are rules for everything and nobody pays any attention to them, and nothing works the way it's supposed to.
Then why does the Justice Department come out and say things like, oh, here's all the evidence, and then they show that they didn't put all the evidence out? And I'm just talking about like that.
Well, then that proves my point. Because people are idiots at every single level. It doesn't matter if you went to Harvard Law School, you can still be an idiot.
Right.
And another thing too, this is a lesson that government officials, especially senior government officials, just cannot learn. And it is that the cover-up of the crime is always worse than the crime.
Oh, yeah.
Always.
A lie begets 10 more lies, begets 100 more lies.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Richard Nixon didn't resign because of Watergate. Richard Nixon resigned because of the cover-up of Watergate. I think it's the same situation here.
All right, well, let me flip it around on you. I have always thought, still do think that Jeffrey Epstein is dead. And I feel pretty comfortable with that.
I spoke to his brother recently.
Oh, you did?
I said, is he dead? And he's like, he's dead. I identified the body. I'm just saying.
I spoke to OJ. I didn't speak to him, but he said he didn't do it. You know what I mean? Like,
he identified the body. He said, I think he was murdered. And that's a debate, that he wanted to have with me. But he said, yeah, he's dead. I identified his body. I took it to the crematorium.
Joseph Scott Morgan, friend of mine, broke this down. He's a medical death investigator. He broke it down like scientifically with all the bones, the hyoid bone and all that, about what would not make sense about it being suicide and therefore it being murder. Obviously, Dr. Michael Baden, who's like the GOAT with all this.
He's the GOAT.
Does not think that he killed himself. Right. So it's possible. It's at least possible that he was killed.
It's possible. Definitely. All right. Absolutely.
Now, I do think he's dead. But again, this whole thing is just like, you almost have to open your mind to fucking everything. That's crazy. So I'll ask it like this. If you were tasked, not that you ever would be, it's hypothetical, people, but if you were tasked with making the world believe that Jeffrey Epstein was dead and getting him out of that prison without anyone knowing to wherever he's going to go to get fucking facial surgery and live out his life, how would you do it?
Oh, you would take out the body, whether it's a body double or, made out of silicone or whatever, take it out in full view of everybody. That's how I would do it. Let as many people as possible see this body so that reasonable people can agree to disagree.
They did do that. And there was a New York Post reporter very ready to go.
And there was the conversation about the ear, which I've heard 1,000 million times.
Those ones I'm always a little skeptical of because they can doctor the image.
Of course. Yeah. Well, it's like this stupid, obviously AI-generated picture of him just like walking down the street in Tel Aviv.
Oh, that one's not real. But I'm saying, like, so the recipe you just gave me, though, is in line. It's not to say that's
with
what happened.
They did. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because I had another guy in here, Candace Gibson, who's worked in media forever, and he's like, the idea that a New York Post reporter on an early Saturday morning in fucking August was that ready to go immediately after this?
Yeah.
Sketchy.
And another thing, too, is if I wanted to initiate a cover-up of this scale, I would cremate whatever it is I took out on that gurney. Because otherwise you'd be having people say, okay, let's just settle this. We're going to dig him up. We're going to get a court order. We're going to exhume the body. We're going to do DNA testing and make sure that this is Jeffrey Epstein. Can't do that. Cremated.
I don't know anymore, John. I really don't.
I have to tell you, I was jaded anyway because of my own personal experience. But now it's like, I don't believe anything anymore. Not at face value anyway.
Have you had your like any kind of moment where you think back to a bunch of stuff, different moments and visions of like things you did that you were certain were because of one thing in one way and one person and one mission that you're now like, wait a minute, why was that guy there too?
I think about that kind of thing all the time.
Yeah.
I do. And in some cases, it's taken years for me to finally conclude, like, oh, crap, that's what that was about.
Mm.
I've thought about this Rockefeller thing a million times.
Yeah.
You know?
That could've
I've
been-
told you the story. It was the one and only time I ever received a phone call from Colin Powell. I told you the story.
You told the internet in the New Voice as well.
Yeah, and in the New Voice.
Right.
But I think about that a lot too.
Yeah.
You know? And I remember when it first happened, I remember thinking, this wasn't your fault. Don't let it bother you. And it's bothered me for decades.
It's human lives. You're a real person.
Yeah.
Yeah. The story was that Colin Powell asked how to target someone in Iraq. John said what it was.
I gave him his address.
And then he found out 8 of them got bombed later. There was one time.
Dozens of cruise missiles, vaporized the building.
Every time I watch that clip, I think of the fucking Mark Wahlberg line, The Departed. Yeah, it can send a fucking cruise missile up the ass of a camel from 1,000 yards away. 1,000 miles away.
Not to get too far off the topic, but the assassination of Ayman al-Zawahiri, the number 2 in Al-Qaeda.
Oh, yeah.
We shot him with a drone-launched missile, right?
Mm-hmm.
The missile had no warhead on it, right? We did that on purpose because we didn't want to kill the women and children inside the apartment. He came out onto the balcony to smoke a cigarette, fired the missile at him. It went completely through his body. A missile went completely through his body, and with no warhead, there was no explosion. Can you imagine cleaning up that mess?
I appreciate the responsibility on that one. At least they didn't hit a wedding.
Oh, we did.
It was a little better than the Obama years.
Hit
I
every
guess.
wedding during Obama.
Yeah, that was interesting. But the thing I had wanted to bring it to when I was bringing up the early origins of Jeffrey Epstein with that Al Yamama deal is obviously the point there is that there is some sort of relationship with intelligences
Absolutely,
at
yes.
the time. And there is a tweet,
Absolutely.
I think I sent it to you, Deef. Yep, he has it up. So this is from Ronald Reagan
Oh, good.
about Iran-Contra, okay? In his new and this is from back in the day, obviously, because he's dead. In the new autobiography, former President Ronald Reagan says Israel was the instigator and prime mover in the Iran-Contra affair. He blames the Israelis for misleading him into believing he was selling arms to so-called Iranian moderates when some, quote, may have had links to the Ayatollah Khamenei's government and were trying to obtain weapons under false pretenses, unquote. Israel began the arms deals with Iran when it contacted Robert McFarlane, Reagan's national security advisor, to propose the first sale and continued to press the secret dealings thereafter. Reagan writes in An American Life that Prime Minister Shimon Peres was behind the proposal, the former president says. Iranian middlemen endorsed by Israel helped, quote, win the freedom of 3 hostages, unquote, Reagan adds. But the same middlemen behaved at times like bait and switch con men with the sole intentions of profiteering. So with Iran-Contra, they were trying to get weapons to the Sandinistas in South America, and they were trying to do it by financing a $150 million deal through Iran when we weren't supposed to be dealing with post-revolution Iran in the 80s. That's like the very high-level version of it. But
it says down here too, Patrick Alley says that Epstein was roommates with Stanley Pottinger. He was in up to his neck in Iran-Contra. Roommates, partners and roommates with J. Stanley Pottinger, who helped ship weapons to Iran prior to Iran-Contra.
can we read this, Steve?
Good
Okay.
grief.
So according to his former friend, the journalist Jesse Kornbluth, who's Epsteined up the ass
Yep.
in the mid-1980s, Epstein said he worked He worked for governments to recover money looted by African dictators and occasionally subcontracted to those same autocrats to help them hide their stolen money. A source who spoke with journalist Vicky Ward from Vanity Fair, the '03 piece, said one of Epstein's clients was the late Saudi arms dealer Khashoggi, a middleman in the Iran-Contra scandal who helped smuggle cash for the Marcos family out of the Philippines. In 1988, Khashoggi was arrested in Switzerland, that's hard to do, for concealing assets and later faced fraud and racketeering charges in the U.S. He was later acquitted. Must have had a great attorney. That year, he sold his 282-foot yacht to the Sultan of Brunei, who soon flipped it to Donald Trump. And let's go to the next one right here. Epstein was fired from Bear Stearns around the time he met Douglas Leese, who I was telling you about. Epstein then started a short-lived partnership with J. Stanley Pottinger, a former U.S. Department of Justice official who was investigated for his role in dealing arms to the Islamic Republic of Iran. The Iran-Contra affair appears to be a pivotal moment in Epstein's life. Between 81 and 86, the Reagan administration covertly sold arms to Iran, which was at war with Saddam Hussein's Iraq. So they were selling to the Iranians they didn't like because they liked Saddam Hussein even less.
Right.
My question is, why is this wasn't clocking to me at first because I looked at this very quickly before we got on air. Why is Reagan saying that benefited the Israelis when the Israelis really don't like the Iranian regime? Like that has always been their big bugaboo.
But the Iranians back then didn't have a nuclear program, and it was Iraq that was the real immediate threat to Israel, because the Iraqis did have a nuclear program and a biological weapons program and a chemical weapons program. And they were working with a Belgian inventor named Gerald Bull the Iraqis were to build something called the big gun. This is one of the very first things I learned about my first week at the CIA. Gerald Bull created this giant gun that was so big, you just had to sort of lean the barrel up against the side of a mountain, point it in essentially the right direction, and then fire it. And it would send a shell as far as a missile would go. And nobody wanted to buy it. They're like, what are we going to do with this giant gun? Right? It's as big as a house. And so the Iraqis said, we'll take it. And so the Iraqis bought this thing, and before it kept cracking when Bull would test it. It kept cracking. So he came up with this idea to put what he called a condom on the inside of the gun to smooth the barrel and to keep the reverberation from the shot from cracking it. But before he could test it with the condom inside, the Israelis assassinated him.
They're pretty good at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Gerald Bull and his giant gun. I remember saying to my boss, like I say, I was only on the job for a week. I said, this is a joke, right? And he said, no, this is deadly serious. It's a giant gun. They have to lean it up on the side of the mountain to fire it.
I'm picturing that thing in Game of Thrones they were trying to take the dragon out with. Where they're just like, come on, baby, let's go. All right, so you had always maintained that Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad access agent. Mm-hmm. Do you think, I wanted to bring this up first so we at least had the context of what Ronald Reagan said about this. Mm-hmm. Probably his handler said about it because I don't think he was all there by the time he wrote that book.
Yeah, not a chance.
So, so do you think that in something like that, if in fact the Israelis had an interest in seeing Iraq be neutralized more, do you think that this is the prime type of situation where he could have been recruited at that time?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you think that's what happened?
You know, when you put all of these episodes together in a line, that would make sense to me. Yes.
Next question. This is a deal where the CIA is running a lot of ops as well, meaning they have to know he's involved with this.
You know, that's a good question. He would have had to have bumped up against CIA ops people,
right?
Or even if not CIA ops people, NSC people who were in up to their necks in this thing.
National Security Council.
National Security Council. You know, the likes of as I said, Admiral Poindexter, Richard Secord, Oliver North, all these guys. So even if you're not dealing directly with agency people, although you probably would be, you're going to at least be dealing with White House people.
Now, you had said earlier you had never heard Jeffrey Epstein mention at CIA. You did hear Khashoggi mention, though, a bunch.
All the time.
Khashoggi was also like extremely public throughout a lot of his life.
That's right.
If 7 people from the NSC and CIA directly dealt, or at least bumped into Jeffrey Epstein during said mission Iran-Contra, which was a cover-up. They were covering up something they were doing.
That's right.
Is it reasonable to say that the compartmentalization structure of espionage bureaucracy in the United States government would mean that those people would chart this, maybe have it in their own files, but not necessarily share it with anybody?
Yes. And I can tell you exactly how that would play out. If I were one of the agency guys involved and I run into this American guy who's in the middle of it, and he's not with us, and he's not with the White House people, then who the hell is he with? So what I would have done is I first would have gone to the White House people and say, who's this American, this Epstein guy? And then I would have gone to the FBI and say, listen, just so you know, we're doing this highly compartmentalized, top secret operation. You don't need to know what it's about, but you do need to know that there's a private citizen involved who's an American, just so you can start a file on him, just in case this is going to be a counterintelligence problem for us in the future. It doesn't look like that was ever done. I can't imagine why.
That was going to be my next question. What would be some...
He had to have had protection at the White House. He had to have.
At that time.
Way back then. Sometime between 1981 and 1984 or 5.
All right, wait a second. That would make sense for a second. So if he has protection at the White House, maybe through a technical intermediary like Oliver North or something like that.
Exactly.
They're doing this under the table.
Right.
It's a crime.
Right.
So he's going to be, it's more like the mob. Like, all right, I'm not saying nothing. I know who that guy is, but I can't tell people I know who that guy is because then they'll say, how do you know who that guy is? And now we got a problem.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. See, I had never thought of that.
That's interesting.
But now that we're playing it out,
yeah,
that makes sense to me.
This is why you're here. So I'd always, again, my mind is very open on all this. I am not married to any of this stuff. What I had always thought, just very 30,000 foot view in the air, and some people have misheard me on recent episodes on how I explain this, so I need to do a better job. I'd always looked at it like, okay, he's working with Mossad, and you have to say this, or with other intelligence organizations in Israel, because they're not the only one.
That's right.
Like Jonathan Pollard wasn't with Mossad, it was with the military.
That's right. It was military.
Same shit,
That's
but
right.
different name.
That's right.
But Mossad's an
It's
easy
just
way
like
to
us.
put it.
We have 18 different intelligence agencies.
Right. You would think 1 or 2 might be enough, but that's neither here
you'd
nor
think.
there. But I always thought he worked with them. And then the thing that really shifted things for Jeffrey Epstein in his timeline was the, I believe, September 2002 flight with Bill Clinton, Kevin Spacey, and Chris Tucker, which made Page 6. Prior to then, Jeffrey Epstein was known as a New York City socialite and not known publicly. He was known on the socialite circles, which, by the way, when someone's known as a socialite in New York, red flag should be flying. But he's in this case, a good spy. He's doing all his sick shit. He's going to the White House 18 times. No one knows who the fuck the guy is and everything. And then all of a sudden, boom, flight happens, Page 6 story. Then he has to do the interview with Vicky Ward in March 2003. Right. He's out there. No coincidence in some ways that his case starts coming up in 05 in Florida because he's a known guy in some respects. And so my thought always was, and if I were a betting man, I would have said it was probably late 90s when Clinton was still in office. My bet always was that CIA was asleep at the wheel, maybe because of the compartmentalization we just talked about. And, then they probably find out, maybe it's 1996, I'll put a year on it, 97. They find out so far this guy's been to the Clinton White House 15 times maybe. They're like, who the fuck
who's
is this guy and the British lady who's whose dad ran the Daily Mirror and he started
Right.
all the fucking peer reviews and runs all our kids' textbooks in America and got buried on the Mount of Olives in fucking
That's
Israel
right.
5 days after he got pushed off a boat. Why is this motherfucker coming in with the guy who's taking blowjobs from the fucking intern?
You know, imagine the stories that you could piece together if you had unfettered access just to the visitor logs.
Just to that.
Uh-huh.
Right? So someone, Linda at Langley,
Right.
goes, wait a minute, we got a problem. Takes it up the chain of command. Suddenly says, boss, I don't know who the fuck this guy is. They then take 10 minutes to look into it, and they're like, oh my God, he's running a fucking pedo ring at the behest of the Victoria's Secret guy in fucking New York City, and holy shit, he's involved with Iran-Contra, he's fucking working with Mossad, he seems to be an intelligence dealer, the fucking wife, who's not really the wife's a problem, she's connected up the ass to all this shit. Oh my God, they got dirt on everyone, including the current president. This is a crisis, the likes of which, if we outed this, everything could fall. Sounds very familiar today, by the way.
Yes, it does.
So they say in that moment, now, I proposed the New Jersey solution. I'm like, just fucking blow his brains out.
Right.
Say to Mossad, what are you going to do about it?
I know a lot of guys that would do that.
Right. Okay, good. I don't know where they were at this time.
Right.
We could have called up fucking Vinny and Rocco. They didn't take care of it.
Exactly what I was thinking.
That's right. But they didn't do that. And this is what I just always posited. And it's a theory. I can't say like, yo, I got evidence this happened. But I'm like, they looked at it and they said, oh, shit. And they go to the guy and they go, all right, you know that we know that you know that we know that you know that we know what you're doing here. And you know that we know that you know that we know that you fucking have been doing this a long time and you could take down the whole system if we tell people about that. And so you know that we know that you know that we know that now we're in a Mexican standoff. Mm-hmm. And so here's the deal. You're going to have to keep doing whatever it is the fuck you do, but now you pay a tax. You're on our soil. You're going to give us some information too. Mm-hmm. And so now, what did he FOIA? He FOIA'd the years 2000 to 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty interesting to me.
I'll say.
Am I crazy or am I crazy?
No. It's a great catch. And it also would tend to implicate both the Bush and the Clinton administrations.
That's right.
Sorry, Bush and Obama.
Wait, now you look. Oh, from the years he FOIA'd. Uh-huh. Okay, I thought you were talking about the backtrack of what they didn't catch.
Now the backtrack. Now you've convinced me that this started even earlier than I thought.
Right.
I was thinking Clinton, and it's not. It's earlier.
It's earlier.
Mm-hmm.
There were some files missing. 2.
Yep.
Not just the 2.5 or 3 million.
No.
I mean, they're in there. But did you see the chart of the years that they're really missing from?
Mm-hmm.
Can we pull up that tweet, Thief? Just so people can see this. I have to rethink everything. I have to rethink things that in the past I would have said were, I feel okay about this take. And now I have to look at it and say, Julian, that was a ice cold, scalding ice cold, if you will, take. And this is just one of these things. Like, it is what it is. When I'm wrong, I'm wrong. This is a data dump. I'm going to simplify this for you, John, because there's some more specific details here. But it is showing basically, like, if you will, a percentage of data sets from the Epstein files that are presented over the years. And we can see that there is a massive gap and basically like you in the chart, if you will, between the years of 1999 to 2001, when, among other things, you had the tech bubble blow up. Mm-hmm. You had, I believe that's 99 is when the Lewinsky impeachment trial's happening. You have the election of 2000, the highly contested election of 2000, John Kiriakou.
Oh, yeah.
Where, I don't know, someone Google this for me, but I think there was a big point of contention in Palm Beach County as it pertains to that election, and that's where one Jeffrey Epstein did happen to reside. Just looking at some things here.
Yep.
And then in 2001, you have the worst terrorist attack in United States history in New York and D.C. and in the skies that fell over Pennsylvania with United 93. Mm-hmm. And suddenly all these files are missing. But, John, we did get an email from 2003 that slipped through the cracks.
Really?
Oh, you haven't seen this one?
No, I haven't seen it.
So there's an email thief. Boom. He's got it. He's all over it. So this is from 2003. Someone named Ed Epstein sends an email to one Ghislaine Maxwell, saying
my
any
God.
interest in being on the Shadow Commission
Oh
on
my
9/11, the membership list is secret. She responds, thanks for the invite. Unfortunately, I cannot be on the Shadow Commission.
A shadow commission. It takes my breath away. Oh my God. This should be the banner headline.
What do you make of that?
I don't even know what to say. I mean, nobody believes what the 9/11 Commission concluded anyway.
That's right.
But the fact that there was a shadow commission with a secret membership list, and Ghislaine Maxwell talked about it in 2003.
Why? That's what I want to know.
Good question.
And it's like, this goes back to a compartmentalization thing too, John, because what we do have on the record that we know happened is somewhere, I think it was like July 6th, 2001, and maybe like August 11th. The dates might be slightly off. There are two meetings that occur at the White House, one of them with Condoleezza Rice, where CIA sent literally Tenet, Cofer Black, and some dudes who were still, like Rich Blee, who's still, I think, undercover. I think that's a fake name if I remember correctly, where they tell them an attack's coming. So like when you look at the whole like, well, CIA definitely did this. CIA had a lot of incompetence because they didn't share information with FBI, and there's a lot of issues there,
Yeah,
and they deserve a ton of
huge.
blame. But that was the one thing in this that was always like the canary in the coal mine for me, where I'm like, well, it couldn't have been that. Like they had the leadership warning about it. So
Yeah, they did.
maybe it's the White House. I don't know. But there's also advanced knowledge that we know about from the Saudis who have always been covered up, and we know about with the 5 guys from Mossad in fucking Fort Lee who were videotaping the thing, who were sent back to Israel on November 6, 2001.
That's exactly right.
And I know a guy from the office that arrested them, and to this day he wonders why the fuck they didn't get why the fuck.
Mm-hmm.
So when I see stuff like this, I'm like, how many countries are involved in this thing?
Is bad.
And is it even countries versus is it this
Right.
trilateral elite
Right.
just in general? Like
Yeah.
everyone wants to just immediately say, it's Israel, it's Saudi Arabia, it's the CIA. How about all the above who are working for all the above?
Mm-hmm.
Possible?
Possible. Yes. Yes. Incredible. Sickening, I think, is how what I first said when we sat down and started talking. This just makes me sick.
I don't even know what to do with them.
GMAX.
GMAX. Redacted.
She must have BCC'd him, Jeffrey. Why would it be in the Epstein files? Why would it be on his computer?
I don't know.
She BCC'd him. The membership
So
list
strange.
is secret. She's not even... Was she an American at the time?
Did she ever become an American officially?
I don't know. I wonder.
Like we talk about this small group, you got the Commerce Secretary and Transition Chair who
Okay.
Ghislaine Maxwell is a
She
naturalized
moved in
American
91.
citizen. Born in France to British and French parents and raised in England, she moved to the United States in 91 following her father's death. She holds triple citizenship, being a citizen of the U.S., UK, and France.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Can say that again.
Yeah. So,
But not Israel. How
not
interesting.
Israel. Yeah.
Man.
You have a guy like Letnick who runs the transition team, is the Commerce Secretary, always in Trump's ear advising him, shares a wall with Jeffrey Epstein for technically 21 years, but he claims it was 14 because he didn't move in until 05. Who knows if even that's true. Openly lies on camera, just blood with this dramatic story about the first and last time I ever spent time with that man. And then he said, so I never dealt with him in business, socially, or even for philanthropy. And what he was really doing was remembering all the things he did deal with him on, because now we saw it on the emails of what it was. But the guy has, as of the time of this recording on Friday afternoon, he has not resigned yet. Still doing his job. And also we find out his sister was one of the founding members of the Terramar Project, which was like Ghislaine's post-Jeffrey conviction, post-Jeffrey's never gonna fucking marry me project that she did, pet project that has something to do with the oceans that she did a fucking TED Talk on.
Oh my
It's
God.
like,
almighty.
what? Do these people just all like fuck each other?
They must. They must. I'm glad I don't know people like this.
You don't.
I don't. No. No. I would feel dirty all the time.
Well, there's a guy in the middle well, actually, John, we can't forget this. Did you see what Hillary Clinton said the other day?
Oh no. What'd she say?
She said that they have. Can we play the video, Deef? I did it in my solo episode. It's coming out 2 days before this, but it's worth repeating. Because again, we got the picture of Ghislaine in the row looking at Chelsea coming down the aisle at her wedding. We know about the 25 to 27 flights on the Lolita Express.
Yep.
We got images of Clinton all with Epstein. Obviously, the Clintons are their whole fucking thing as well on the side that doesn't even have to do with Epstein. We know about the 18 known visits that happened to the White House.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, let's run it. Hillary Clinton says this when asked about the links between the Clintons and the Epsteins. And Epstein.
Regret the links that there have been. You know, we have no links. We have a very clear record that we've been willing to talk about, which my husband has said. He took some rides on the airplane for his charitable work.
For charitable work.
I don't recall ever meeting him.
Did you ever meet Ghislaine Maxwell?
I did on a few occasions, and thousands of people go to the Clinton Global Initiative. So it to me is not something that is really at the heart of what this matter is about. They are accused, and in both cases were convicted of horrific crimes against girls and women. That should be the focus. And we are more than happy to say what we know, which is very limited and totally unrelated to their behavior or their crimes. And we want to do it in public because let's make this transparent. The survivors deserve that. The public deserves that. But
God. They just lie with straight faces.
Straight faces.
Mm-hmm.
How does a guy like Jeffrey Epstein get so involved with Bill Clinton clearly before he got into office?
Yeah, that's a good question. Could he have spotted Bill Clinton that early on in the process? Just another governor?
Well, there's a governor who was letting Barry Seal fly coke planes into Mina with no questions asked.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Although I always believed he was told, hey, we're going to do this and you're going to say it's okay. And he did.
What makes you think that?
Because that would have been a federal operation. I mean, we all knew, everybody knows now that the CIA was allowing cocaine into the country, making its way to Los Angeles. So it would have been federal. It's not up to a governor to say, no, you can't do this. It's like, shut the fuck up. We're doing it.
We're going to do it and you'll become president.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
exactly.
Listen to what we say.
Exactly.
It's just always funny when Hillary, not funny, but it's kind of sick when Hillary talks about like women and victims and stuff like that.
God.
And then you think about the things that both of them are actually accused of.
Uh-huh.
It's like, come on. That's what I mean. The political opportunism of this, that I'll call out all day. It's like nobody gets a win here.
No, there are no good guys in this whole thing. And then, it just makes me feel that much worse that Virginia Giuffre took her life. I can't even fathom the pressure that she was under. And she kind of cracked in slow motion. Remember, weeks in advance of her death, she said she had been like hit by a school bus or something, and I don't remember the whole story, but she kind of cracked up right in front of our eyes.
Yeah, it's suspicious, and apparently also, it does have to be said, her husband did beat her.
Yeah,
as well.
Yep. Yes.
She had confided that in Tara Palmieri, who's a journalist that she worked with, and so once her family released photos of her from towards the end of her life that included like standing photos of her with bruises all over her, Tara said that she had promised obviously not to say anything, but
Mhm.
she's like, now that Virginia is deceased and her family has released these photos, I do feel like I should also reveal that her husband beat her all the time. Doesn't mean there's not something fishy there.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
she
this is bad.
She went after a lot of people. And I just, it's like these people, they see all these things 20, 30, 40 years ahead at their cute little fucking Bilderberg meetings, but they couldn't see the internet coming.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's right.
It's kind of weird, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's a guy that's been at the middle of all this, Steve Bannon, who I mentioned Henry Abbott earlier. Shout out to Henry for turning me on to this back in 2021, 2022.
And it all turned out to be true.
It was all true. Steve Bannon goes way back with Leon Black and all those guys. You can trace it back to the 80s, and you can trace back the earliest investments in things that became Cambridge Analytica in 1992. So they were already thinking about how to influence people through fear all the way back then, but they weren't thinking about the very tools they were building being used against them to have the public be able to discuss things in the open, including the bullshit they do behind closed doors.
Imagine.
Why? That doesn't make sense to me, though. Like, what am I missing there?
One of my favorite movies is a 1970s sci-fi film called Soylent Green.
You mentioned it last time, yep.
I did.
Mm-hmm.
And Soylent Green takes place in the future. It was filmed in like 1972 or something, and I think it takes place in 2015. And cars, float on the air, and the world is overpopulated and people can't afford food. And it gives you a pretty good depiction of a world that's on the brink of just falling apart. The only thing that they just got completely and totally wrong was every time Charlton Heston, the main character, who's a policeman, every time he needed to make a call, he'd pull over to the side of the road, go into a phone booth and make the call. Yeah. I guess there are just some things people don't see.
That's a good way to put it.
I remember I was in a station in the Middle East. I was there on temporary duty for a week and a half. And there was a tech team in from headquarters, and they were installing the first ever email program. And so everybody in the station was gathered around this computer, and they're showing us that you click on this little button that had an envelope on it, and then you write in somebody's name and hit refresh, and their actual name pops up. And then you can just write them a letter. It's called electronic mail, email. And the station chief says, wait a minute. Are you saying that my people can have access to anybody they want? They just write this electronic mail and hit send? And the guy said, yes. And the chief said, I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. And then he sort of made this edict that there would be none of this email in his station. Sometimes you just don't see it. You just can't, your brain can't comprehend it. And maybe that's what we're looking at here with our 2020 hindsight.
I don't understand, though, in the 2010s, once it was a real thing, like an email's been
why
around
didn't they
forever.
adapt?
Yeah. Because it's like, yes, obviously these people were talking in a way that they didn't think the DOJ would ever release their emails to the public, right? But you have people in 2021, 2022, 2023 keeping their jobs and saying, no, I regret my relationship, but I didn't really know him. And now it comes out that they did. And yet, maybe I'm thinking of this too simply and I'm the farthest thing from a lawyer, but discovery exists. If you get sued civilly and stuff,
you get access to everything.
And that can get leaked.
Mm-hmm.
So why?
It often does.
Right? So these people being so arrogant to be like, no one will ever know that I had 11,500 emails with the dude. So I'll keep my job at Goldman Sachs.
It's just incredible. Yeah, it's crazy. What goes through somebody's mind? Like, she knew how many emails. I mean, she, at least in her mind, had a ballpark figure.
Kathy Rumler. Yeah.
Kathy Rumler. How many emails she exchanged with Jeffrey Epstein. And did she think that by not telling the C-suite at Goldman Sachs that it just wasn't going to be a problem? That this was never going to come to light? I mean, the guy died in 2019. It's 2026. And it never occurred to her, maybe I should try to get ahead of this. This is going to be a problem. Or was she that arrogant to think that she could just weather this? And if you're the CEO of Goldman Sachs, you have to be saying, fucking Rumler. What was she thinking?
Yeah, I mean, he should have done that though 3 years ago.
Yeah, he should have. Yes.
Should have just cut ties with these people.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they're in that kind of position. It gets weird when he's like friends with or associating with guys in academia and stuff like that, because you're like, well, funders come in and fund stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And now we see a lot of that was a lot closer than that,
to
be clear. But like when you're a lawyer at the Obama Justice Department, like the lawyer, or in the Obama White House, and you have that kind of access, and you were dealing with this guy a ton who is a spy now,
mm-hmm.
you have to know you're going to be fried in this. There's just no way to look at it.
And if you've got the kind of money that the general counsel at Goldman Sachs would have, then you hire a reputation recovery firm. Right? And they're out there, reputation.com for, average people like you and me.
Or Peggy Siegel.
And get ahead of this.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody thought to do that.
They did not.
Mm-mm.
And it's very clear that Jeffrey maintained all of his power, or I should say almost all of his powerful contacts, including new ones post-conviction.
That's the oddest thing to me, was that conviction. This is a child sex crime conviction. As entry level as it was for him because of the sweetheart deal. You think that would send people screaming from the room. And it didn't. It didn't set him back at all. He just jumped right in. Right back in. No problem.
What do you think the angle with Bannon was looking at this? Because Bannon leaves the White House with Trump after he's fired. And then from all the texts we can see, which are cringe, the emails we can see, he is essentially becoming that PR guy.
Yeah, he is.
For Jeffrey Epstein. He even has an email in there where he's like, you have a fucking jihad against you, the likes of which I've never seen, and I've seen a lot of shit. And then, they're following up emails on here where he's sending Jeffrey articles and saying, well, this makes you sound like you're contrite and, talking about all this stuff. And then he films them on camera for what was reported to be up to 18 hours worth of footage. We have like 2 to 4 hours of it or something through the files. This is a guy, Bannon, who, like I said, goes way back to the 80s with all these people. Is he a spy? Like, I've always believed that. Do you think that's plausible?
Plausible, sure. Likely, I can't imagine.
Why?
Because at the position that he was, counselor to the president, he would have been vetted, should have been vetted 9 ways from Sunday. He should have been. The FBI should have been all over this. Of course, my position on the FBI, so.
But Howard, you say that Howard Lutnick's the commerce advisor. Leon Black's son works in the fucking administration. Like, these are vetting 101.
Yeah, you're right. Sure, it's plausible. I'm trying to think what the hook would be, what the vulnerability would be to recruit him, because Bannon's almost a billionaire.
Yes.
Right? He owns the rights to Seinfeld and a whole bunch of other things. He's worth, the last I saw several years ago, he was worth $750 million. Yeah. So you're not going to recruit him with money.
Unless he was recruited before he got it.
Okay, that's a good point.
He always ends up in places. That's the thing. He's always in the right place.
He's long been in the right place at the right time.
There was one phone call I was on with a guy who was talking my ear off back in 2022. Another one of those like shiver up the spines, because this was after I'd read the Abbott piece. I was onto this with Steve Bannon. And this dude was listing off a whole bunch of things, and he starts talking about this guy, Brock, Mighty Ducks Brock guy. Can we Google that? Brock
Pierce.
Brock Pierce. You know about Brock Pierce?
No.
Brock Pierce is worth a fuck ton of money. Made it. He was a Mighty Ducks actor. Ends up, I'm going to really shorten this up for people, but he ends up in a partnership business-wise with this guy who ends up having these parties out in Hollywood where the guy is raping boys, underage boys.
My God.
And that ends up coming out, and then they all flee to Spain. That guy ends up getting arrested. I think he stands trial or makes a deal or something, and then eventually gets permission to leave the country for some sort of surgery and never comes back and gets a new name.
Oh my
But
goodness.
Brock, because can you pull up his Wikipedia, Deef? Because now it's in there, and this is starting to like break open. I've been telling people to pull on this, but go down, Deef. Brock ends up a little more. Right, and up a little more. Yeah. Okay. So Brock ends up founding in 2001. Now I'm going right off Wikipedia, people. He founded Internet Gaming Entertainment, a company that pioneered the MMORPG currency selling services industry. Between 2004 and 2005, IGE spent more than $25 million buying out 7 smaller competitors, including 4 auction platforms and many fan and content sites. In 2005, Pierce estimated that IGE accounted for about 50% of this online market in the US, which has about $500 million in annual volume. Pierce brought in Steve Bannon, formerly of Goldman Sachs and Breitbart News, to seek venture capital, and a deal was made in February 2006, yielding $60 million, of which Pierce took away $20 million for a minority stake. The next year, the company faced a class action lawsuit with no assets. The company failed, and Pierce was conveniently forced out. Now go down to the Epstein section, Deef. In February 2026, an investigation by the Kyiv Independent and newly released U.S. Department of Justice documents on Jeffrey Epstein reported that the files included an email in which a man identified as Pierce, described as a co-founder of Tether, told Epstein that a boat in Antigua full of amazing Ukraine's finest was waiting for him. A separate analysis of the same document released by the crypto news outlet Protos stated that in 2012, after Epstein asked Pierce to take photos and find me a present during a trip to Moscow, Kyiv, and Odessa, which is where they would source a lot of underage women and traffic them, by the way, Pierce emailed Epstein's dozens of photographs of a Ukrainian woman named Anastasia, and closed the message by writing that Ukraine is now my favorite country. And in another email, he invited Epstein to join him on a boat in Antigua, once again full of Ukraine's finest. This is stuff that is now new online that I was told in 2002 directly about this. And just conveniently, this guy, before he even blows up, he was a Mighty Ducks actor, before he blows up as a businessman, and before, like, this person I was on the phone with also told me about his Jeffrey Epstein connections as well. Before that, he just happens to bring in Steve Bannon to this video game community that also... And this is where it gets above my pay grade, but it has, and Deef, pull that mic around because I want you to say what you're going to say, but it has to do with moving money online that's like through video game coins that can be laundered into other stuff. Maybe people out there can help me, but Deef, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, because it was a big thing that China had first gotten involved with the video game RuneScape. They'd sell in-game currency for real money. But this is weird, and I'm only going to bring this point up for you to pull on if you want. This whole conspiracy that they keep seeing all this activity from Epstein's account on Fortnite and all these video games. Just think that's a weird little connection now to know that Bannon was involved with that. Just saying. I don't know.
People. Yeah, that's crazy.
It's weird.
I don't know, man. And he's still very much an insider in Washington. He's got his podcast. He's got a house on Capitol Hill.
Mm-hmm.
He's
The
very
War
much
Room.
in the War Room. Yep. Yeah.
What do we do? Do you just blow it all up?
You know, we're gonna have to, like, even if it means taking to the streets, demand the release of all the remaining documents. We have to. They have to be released. First of all, the law mandates that they be released. It's not up to Pam Bondi or anybody else. They have to be released. That's the law. And then we need to rely on people like you to go through these things and make sense of them.
How about all the code words they're using?
Yeah, see, now that's another thing. See, and we're weakened by the fact that we can't charge people with crimes. You know, imagine how much easier it would be to say, look, you're involved in this. We've got a conspiracy charge hanging over you. You're going to do at least 5 years. Or you can tell us what all these code words mean and walk us through this one step at a time, and then we'll figure out, something a little easier. But the DOJ can't do that.
There's one that's used in there that Deef and I were looking at this morning, and your brain runs in a lot of different directions, where it says jerky. And there was a guy who did a nice breakdown of this. Deef, let me give you this, dude. I actually have it right here, so I want to give him a shout out. This is Dr. G Explains on YouTube. And what I liked is he even when it was obvious, where it's like, all right, we can definitely make some sort of like this type of conclusion there, he didn't. He just reported the fucking emails. But the way they refer to, we need more jerky, we need to put it in the fridge, we need this number of pounds of it, we have to cook it. This email right here that Deef pulled up says, how is your jerky situation? Should I bring any more? And there's another email to Jeffrey Epstein from unknown. Francis has time to come tomorrow to show me how to make it. Jerky class, anyone? He will also bring you a taste of his new jerky recipe from the restaurant and sends a warm hello. He is working in a restaurant called Cannibal and Cooks. Is this real?
This is from Jmail.
Wait for it. Beef jerky and steak. He has time at 3 p.m. tomorrow if this is okay with you. And they refer to didn't they refer to storing it chemically?
No, in freezers.
Yeah.
That's why I thought blood.
I mean,
see, this is why we need the rest of these documents.
The whole thing is a 4chan a dream.
Yeah.
I will freely admit it.
You're right. Yeah.
They did what? Steve sent me some. There's also an Epstein connection to the creator of 4chan, quote, Moot. And how, no, you're good. And how he and Bannon helped to create r/politics, which basically created the alt-right pipeline that helped Trump win the election.
It just goes deeper and deeper and deeper.
Okay. Can you pull up the Peter Thiel Brexit email exchange?
Yeah.
With Epstein? 2016, June 2016. It's probably not in.
I have this one about the collapse. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. Okay. So Epstein, you know what's crazy, bro? I remember. Oh God, that's so weird. I remember where I was when this happened too. This wasn't that far away. Okay. So Brexit, he sends to Peter Thiel, Brexit, just the beginning. Peter Thiel responds, of what? And Epstein goes, return to tribalism, counter to globalization, amazing new alliances. You and I both agreed zero interest rates were too high. And as I said in your office, finding things on their way to collapse was much easier than finding the next bargain. This is where the whole bankers profiteering off of war, and obviously Peter Thiel is not a banker. Jeffrey worked in finance for bankers and stuff, but they're from the banker class, if you will. This is where I look at that and go, well, here you go.
Oh my God.
I never seen you so speechless this much.
I feel bad that I'm so shocked that I can't contribute very much. It's so overwhelming. It's so sickening. I didn't realize it was this deep. Incredible. And Jeffrey Epstein aside, and Ghislaine Maxwell, of course, these are the people that are still running the country.
Yes.
They're running the economy.
Notice the vice president hasn't said anything
Not a word.
recently.
Not a single word.
That's his chief funder right there.
Yes, it is.
He also had
He created JD Vance.
Yes, but actually before that, are you aware that JD Vance had a fundraiser dinner at Les Wexner's house in 2017?
That I was not aware, but that actually doesn't surprise me.
It doesn't.
No, because Les Wexner was the guy in Columbus, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a Republican in Ohio, you need to kiss the ring. Yeah. I did not know it, though.
If remove our own guilt in this for a second, because we definitely have some, that I do believe, and again, I'm very open to changing my opinion on things, but I do believe in this situation, CIA and U.S. intelligence has blood on its hands with all this. I just don't see a scenario where they don't.
No,
but you
I
also
agree.
have other governments that do as well.
Yes.
And it's multiple. It's an ally like the UK. It's an ally like Israel, where we know Jeffrey had significant contacts, including Ehud Barak. It also came out in the emails that the U.S., the Israeli UN security team came over to install all of his security at his place. Oh, you didn't see it? Can we pull up this email, Dave?
Are you kidding me?
John's having a fucking crisis of conscience right now. I'm sorry. There's been a lot of me talking the last half hour while John's just like questioning everything. All right, so this is from Mario Nawfal, Israeli government.
Oh, I
installed-
just talked to Mario 2 days ago.
Yeah, there you go. What are the chances? The Israeli government installed security systems at Epstein's Manhattan building where he housed underage models. Starting 2016, Israeli mission to the UN coordinated with Epstein's staff to install alarms, sensors, and surveillance equipment. Rafi Shlomo, who, I said this earlier, very Russian name.
Yeah.
Head of security for former Israeli PM Ehud Barak, personally controlled access to the apartment, did background checks on cleaners, remotely disabled alarms when people needed to enter, and Epstein personally approved it all. The emails are right there. I read these in the solo episode the other day, but this tweet's up on the screen. Just if you wouldn't mind, Dave, just pulling up the email so people can see it. But this is the back and forth, and then the other one, I think also, this is where they're going through the details, but then this is where it's laid out with Ehud's name in there and everything. I believe Nelia Ehud was on the other email, his wife, I assume. But they're going through the whole things of what they're going to be wiring. And it seems like they have a pretty chummy relationship.
It sure seems that way. And Jeffrey doesn't mind holes in the walls. Of course, we learned that in spades at the Island House.
Did you see Netanyahu's response to
No.
the Ehud
Oh,
Barak
I'd love
stuff?
to hear it.
I'm paraphrasing here. But he said, this actually proves that we are not guilty because Ehud Barak has attempted to overthrow the entire Israeli order as a political opponent for many years and operated, I don't know if he said in like the George Soros crowd or something like that, but he was like insinuating like, anti-Israel. And we're talking about a dude, Ehud Barak, who does have opposite politics in many cases to Netanyahu, except in the case of, trying to grow Israel, which, that's what they're trying to do. How they do that is certainly the question. But, to say that about a dude who is like within Israel, a legendary special forces guy.
Yeah.
Who got it. We have the fucking New York City shot from the movie Munich right there, where he gets a shout out in the fucking movie while Mossad is doing some of the shit, right? And then he becomes prime minister eventually, defense minister and everything. But being with Epstein is a way to show that you're innocent. That seems a little...
No. He's flailing around.
Right?
Unbelievable.
Is it an unsurvivable, because of the public's reaction, if that information were flat out confirmed by both governments, is it an unsurvivable act for an allyship between the two nations?
Oh, no.
It's not?
No. This is going to be a little blip, a temporary blip. Oh, listen. The Israelis, the pro-Israel lobby, mostly in the form of AIPAC, is so entrenched in American politics, American society, American culture, that the relationship isn't changing at all. It's only because of the likes of Tucker Carlson, people with large followings out there speaking truth and talking about what America first really means, that might make a difference. People are they're gonna say, oh, well, that Ehud Barak, well, first of all, he's a has-been. Secondly, that was a long time ago. It's almost 10 years ago. And it's not Netanyahu. Netanyahu's the one in charge now. That's going to be the reaction.
But the public is so aware of some of these things, though, now, because
Yeah.
of many people on the left and right.
Yes.
It's a very bipartisan thing.
Very much so, yes.
And so you think even in this kind of year, it would be a blip if we found out that had some sort of confirmation that the most prolific known public pedophile, spy dude, arms dealer, trilateral commission person, Coney Island resident, was running a Mossad honeypot operation with all the above and money laundering. We just move on from that?
they didn't care for more than a few weeks when Jonathan Pollard was caught red-handed, and they were managing the operation from the Israeli defense minister's office.
Rafi Eitan was overseeing it, I believe.
Yeah, right. It didn't matter. And the Israelis hemmed and hawed and then kind of quietly apologized, and everything just kind of roared right back. And I think that's what we're going to see again.
So here's the other thing a lot of people say online, and I understand why they say it, but I have you in the studio right now as someone who used to be in the intelligence community who can speak to this. But people will often say CIA equals Mossad, Mossad equals CIA.
It's just simply not true.
Okay, why is that?
That's a statement made out of ignorance. Yeah.
Now, why do you say that? Because I agree with you from what you've told me,
Oh, yeah.
but I'd love for you to explain it to everybody.
Because the Mossad actively spies on the United States. Actively. Yes, we have a close operational relationship with Mossad, but to say we're two peas in a pod like that, absolutely not true. We are with the Brits, the Canadians, the Australians, the New Zealanders, the Five Eyes countries. We have very close relations with several other, NATO countries, but the Israelis, listen, at the CIA, Israel was ranked as critical threat for counterintelligence, along with Russia, China, Cuba, and North Korea. Yeah. The Israelis are not our friends. They actively recruit Americans to spy on Israel's behalf, to betray the United States.
Now, the people who make those arguments, though, one place where I could see from their lens is when you look at the top of the chain with, say, directors of these agencies who are political appointees. You have a guy like Mike Pompeo who ran CIA, who could not possibly be more pro-Israel, right?
Not possible to be more pro-Israel than Mike Pompeo. Yeah.
So is it possible that there are some pockets where there is some overlap, but for the most part, as you're saying, the rank and file and people who work at the agencies, they don't really like each other?
Sure. Yeah, it's possible to say that. And, presidents come and go, administrations change, the relationship is fraternal.
Right.
At the working level, it's not so nice.
The last thing today, John, this has been good, but I know that some of this is
I'm intellectually exhausted now. I'm very upset by all this.
I can see. So I don't want to.
It's like, what happened to our country?
I don't want to torture you. But I do have to get to the one thing that we left off from the beginning, which is what you heard about the whole Iran thing. I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah.
I'm just going to let you go with whatever you're allowed to say.
So I have a friend, former CIA officer, who was at the White House this morning talking to his friends, and he says that a decision has been made to attack Iran on Monday or Tuesday. The president yesterday gave the Iranians 10 days to accept our proposals for an end to their ballistic missile program, an end to their uranium enrichment program, an end to supporting groups in the Middle East like Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis. But he's done this before. Well, he'll give you 10 days, he'll give you 2 weeks, and then he'll just attack 2 days into it. He thinks that keeps people off balance. The USS Abraham Lincoln has been in the Arabian Sea for weeks. We've got about 24 support ships in the Persian Gulf, the Arabian Sea, the Red Sea, and the Eastern Mediterranean. We've got the USS Gerald Ford, which is in Gibraltar right now. It's passing through the Straits of Gibraltar like today on its way to the Eastern Mediterranean and probably through the Suez Canal into the Red Sea. So we're going to have enough assets to attack Iran in the next couple of days. And so he said that there are battle lines, that the anti-war forces are J.D. Vance and Tulsi Gabbard. He said that
That's it?
That's it. He said the pro-war people are led by Marco Rubio and include Pete Hegseth and now the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And I stopped him on that point this morning. And I said, wait a minute. I said, during the Iraq War, at the start of the Iraq War, the most stridently anti-war component was the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They were always the last ones that wanted to attack because they know what war is. And he said, but you forget, Trump has replaced all of the Joint Chiefs this year, in the past 12 months, which I had forgotten. Any of these four-star generals who, had worked their way up through the ranks, but had served under Biden, he fired all of them. All of them. And he promoted people that he knew would be politically loyal. So Julian, I've always been one of these glass half full guys.
Me too.
I've always been optimistic about things. And I've been saying a lot in my own podcasts, in written pieces. We went through round 1 with the Omanis in Muscat. We went through round 2 with the Swiss in Geneva. Both sides came out and said these were both productive meetings. We're going to go to round 3. Everything's looking good. The Omanis are asking us to just relax and let them do what they're good at. The Omanis are really, really good at diplomacy. Really good. Mm-hmm. They're very, very good friends. And they're honest. So the Iranians trust them as well. And I think that none of that really matters right now. I think a decision's been made.
Do you think this is to distract from the current scandal?
Probably in part, yeah.
How about them saying they're going to release the UFO files last night, which I've wanted released forever. But
I know, right?
Timing,
I mean, we've been talking about this for years.
the timing.
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
Same movie over and over again. Different actors, just remakes.
And you remember, you're probably a little bit too young, but in the 90s, the movie Wag the Dog was like, people had their hair on fire. But oh my God, look, this movie's about the president made a war to distract from his affair. It's like, yeah, how quaint that is now. Yeah. So quaint.
That seems to be all that happens, and people have short memories.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hope that I will take that clip and put that out tomorrow, Saturday, so that we can maybe get some attention on that to see if somehow that little ripple ends up making its way to change some decisions. Because one of the promises of Trump's campaign was no more endless wars.
Right.
Going into Iran is entirely different than going into Venezuela.
92 million people. It's a gigantic country. It's bigger than Texas. And it has 92 million people. And I think that at the White House, they have just bitten right into this Israeli propaganda, the same kind of propaganda we got in 2003, that as soon as we cross that border, they're going to throw flowers at us and they're going to greet us as liberators and we're all going to live happily ever after and everybody's going to get rich on the new oil deals. And that's just not going to happen. It never happens.
Crazy world, John.
It is, man.
Well, I'm sorry to blow your mind a few times today.
I'm not often stunned into speechlessness.
You also blew my mind as regular, though. And that happens every single time.
Thank you.
Just, your life experiences are insane. And I'm really, jokes aside with the memes, I'm so happy to see you getting the attention you deserve and have deserved for a long time for people that are just learning about John online. Your story had a long, very unfair downswing to it. It's been
an odyssey, that's for sure.
Getting back 180
we all get a good laugh, out of these memes, but this was deadly serious.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. But I'm really happy to see it, and we'll continue supporting it here.
Good to see you again.
It's great
always
seeing you as always, sir.
Thank you.
All right,
take care.
Everybody else, you know what it is. Give it a thought. Get back to me. Hopefully, we're not at war with fucking Iran.